If you want to see how to get this makeup look, just keep on watching.
Okay, so first I started off with my P. Louise base, and this is in the shade Rumor Zero. And yes, I already have one side of my face done because I was experimenting and I wanted to see how it would look before I did the full look. And so, yeah, that's why half of my face is done. But, of course, start with my P. Louise base, put it on, and then blend it out with a beauty blender. The next thing I did was I took out my Zulu palette by Juvia's Place and my James Charles palette, and I mixed those two dark purples together because I like the way they looked together and they really looked vibrant and bright. So I took my Morphe M506 brush and I mixed those two together, and then I started drawing my outline for my crease shape. Now, at first I did it really lightly just because I wanted to make sure that's where I wanted to put my crease. And then I did go back and layer more coats of it on top, so that way it was more vibrant and pigmented. But I did do a thin layer, and then I packed more on top as I went. The next thing I did after I got my crease shape all nice and pigmented, I went into my Morphe Rainbow palette and I used the color #LoveWins, which is just a light purple color, and I just packed that on the edge of the dark purple that I had just put over. So I just lightly packed that on the edge and I blended them together. I didn't really smoke it out just yet because I wanted to pack more colors onto my lid, so I'm barely smoking out the edge of it with the light purple and not taking it all the way up, so keeping it kind of in that close crease shape, just like that. And then when I finally got those two colors blended, I got back into my Juvia's Place and I used that deep orange mixed with a light orange in my James Charles palette, mixed those two colors together, and I just repeated the same step like I did with the light purple. I lightly blended it out to the edge of where the light purple was, not blending it all the way up because I still wanted to add more colors to my lid, but lightly blending it where that light purple was at, and just lightly going over, not too much force and not blending too hard, just like that until I was satisfied with the way it looked. And then when I got those colors blended, I went back into my Zulu palette, mixed in that light yellow, and I also went into my Morphe Rainbow palette and I got into the color Sunlight, mixed those two yellows together. Then I used my Morphe 441 brush, and that's when I smoked out the corners using those yellows that I had blended together, just to give it a really nice smoked out fluffy kind of look at the end. And I just went all over my whole lid with that at the end whenever I was finished blending out the orange. I then went back into my Zulu palette, into that dark purple, mixed it with the James Charles dark purple in that palette, and I began to darken up my crease because after all those colors and all that blending, it definitely lightened up, so I wanted to re-darken it and just re-sharpen that crease shape that I had made. So I'm just going back, blending it in, and then of course blending it out with the other colors. And then after that, I got back into my Morphe Rainbow palette, dipped back into that light purple that I had used previously, and I lightly, very lightly blended out that edge. Very gently, using a very soft hand, blending it out because I didn't want that color to spread too high and cover the orange I had just laid. So I just very, very, very lightly blended that dark purple into with that light purple and making it a seamless blend together, just like that. And I just kept blending until I was satisfied with the way it looked. And then when I was finished with that, I got into my makeup remover, I used a Q-tip, and of course I cut my crease and outlined my crease shape the way I wanted it to be with that makeup remover. And so after I finished cutting my crease, that's when I went back in with my P. Louise base and I started doing the outline for my cloud shape. So with this shape, all I did was start at the base of my eyelid and start making a curvature shape towards the end. And I just started rounding off where I usually would cut my crease and rounding inwards, making it a little half circle towards the end of my crease. And I kind of just did that all over my eyelid, just starting on the outside and taking my brush and curving the end of it so that way it would make a nice half circle shape. And that's how I got the cloud shape, by doing that technique over the whole lid. And then once I was satisfied with the shape I had got, I dipped into my James Charles palette and I used that white shade. And I just packed that over my whole lid where I had just created my cloud look, just so that way it was nice and matte and it wouldn't crease throughout the day, just like that. And then once I finished that, I dipped back into those dark purples that I had used on my crease, and I just packed those on to the outer edge of the cloud and lightly blended those in because I wanted to go for a gradient kind of ombre effect. So I just packed those in on the corners and I just lightly blended them in, not too much into the cloud, but just lightly so that way I can layer the colors and make it look like a gradient ombre effect how I did on my lid. And I just kind of repeated those steps again, taking that light purple I had used, blending it lightly into that darker purple, and then barely blending it out so that way it had that nice gradient effect. And I just repeated those steps over which each color that I had used. So the same with this, I just took that orange that I had used, blended it with the other orange in the James Charles palette, and did the same thing, lightly blended it into that light purple and lightly smoked out the ends so that way it looked really gradient and it had that nice ombre fading effect that I was going for. And the same thing with the yellow, just did the back into that yellow that I had used, and then repeated the same step. Just lightly blended it into that orange and lightly blending it outwards. And then once I finally finished blending everything in, I took my Morphe white eyeliner and I just began making little dots all over my eyelid to represent the little twinkles or the little stars. So I didn't really follow a pattern or put them in a specific place. I kind of just dotted them all over till I felt like that was enough. And then after I did the little twinkle, so got more eyeliner and I began making that little twinkle on the end of my eye. So all I did was basically go down and out and down, if that makes sense. So down and out and down, just like that. And of course, after I got the shape that I wanted, I went back and made it thicker and made it bigger after I did the outline. So go back in with my white eyeliner and just add on to the shape, making it bigger and thicker. Once I was finished with that, that was basically the end of the eye look, and I started working on my face. So I just went back into my Juvia's Place and my James Charles palette, and I began using those two dark purples and just kind of started outlining the shape that I wanted my clouds to be. So I did not put any foundation on this part because I didn't want to mess it up, but I just put on some primer and I began outlining with that dark purple. So of course went back in with that purple, made it darker, and then kind of blended it out and got it to where I wanted it to be. And then once I had the shape and the color right, I went back in kind of like I did on the lid with that light purple and started blending out the edge, making sure not to take it too high up or blending it too out, just right over that purple, kind of smoking out a little bit on the ends like I did on the eyelid, using the same color. So just like that, and then just keep blending until you like it or till you feel like it's blended enough. And then with this, I did the same on the eyelid, got back into those two oranges that I had used, and then just lightly blended out that purple, just barely blending out the edge of it, going over that, kind of barely smoking out the edge until I liked it. And yeah, that's pretty much all I did for that. It's just the same as the eyelid, just lightly blending it out until I felt like it was blended enough or I liked the way that it looked. And then with this next step, I went back in with my M441 brush and I took that yellow that I had used from both the palettes, mixed them together, and I really blended this up because I wanted it to be really high up, like almost touching the bottom of my bottom eye. So I blended this color really high up, and I just sat there and I blended it out and blended it out and blended it out until I felt like it was good and I liked the way it had looked. Really, really soft and really give it that smoked out effect. Once I was finished with that, I did get back into that dark purple and I just started blending that color up higher. So I took it up a little bit higher and I went really lightly with this color because I didn't want it to cover the light purple I had put down, but I just really lightly started blending it up and just making it more blended together. And then lastly, I just went in with that light purple again and then smoked out that edge again like I did on the eyelid. So just barely blending out that purple, really easy, really seamlessly to give it that flawless blended look. Now once I was finished blending all those colors together, I got back in with my P. Louise base and I just started shaping the clouds. And I did basically the same thing that I did for my eyelid, except I drew individual clouds instead of just one big one. So with this, I found it easier just making the outside shape, the little round curves on the end, and then just lightly dabbing that color down because you don't want too hard of a shape or else they're not going to look like clouds, they're just going to look like little blobs. So I found it easier to draw the outline first of the cloud, then just lightly taking any extra base that I had and pulling it and blending it down to give it more of a fluffy look. And that's pretty much what I did over the whole face. You can place the clouds in any way, any position, add any clouds you liked. I just wanted to keep it symmetrical with the other side of my face, so that's why I just kind of did the same design on both sides. And then once I finished making the shapes, got them how I wanted them, I just went back in with that white eyeshadow from the James Charles palette, and I just lightly dabbed a little extra on the top just to set them and put them in place. And then once I was finished setting the clouds, I just went in with a little pointer brush and that dark purple I used, and I lightly blended the edges with a little bit of that dark purple just to blend the edge a little bit together with the base I already had laid, and made the cloud look more fluffy and more realistic, more blended. So I just took the bottom 2 clouds and blended those edges with that dark. And then I just did the same step for the top clouds, took a little pointer brush, got into that light orange and that yellow I used, and just lightly blended over the top of that cloud, just like that. So that way it blended better and it looked more realistic. And just like that. And then for the final step, I just went in with my white eyeliner and repeated the same process I did with my eyelid. So just made all those little white dots all around until I liked the way it looked and I was happy with how it looked. And then I did my little twinkles using the same process. So down and out and down and out, drew the outline, and then went over it and made it darker. And I did draw 2 twinkles on my face just because there was more room to put more, and I liked the way it looked. And then basically this was the last step for this look. I finished drawing the twinkles, did my face makeup, and yeah, that was the completed look.
And this is the final look. I honestly am so happy with the way this turned out. I love the colors. I think it's so extra, and that's exactly what I wanted it to be. I definitely love this color scheme way more than the first one I did with just the blue. I feel like this one is just much more detailed, and especially with the whole face, I feel like it definitely is me. But yes, here it is. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and thank you for all the love and support that I have gotten from my first video and all the subscribers. I really just wanted to say thank you to everybody, and I definitely will be posting more videos now. But yeah, here's the final look. Let me know what you guys think. Like, comment, subscribe, follow me at my Instagram at makeup_arena. I have the link in my bio as well. But thank you for watching. Bye.